Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look at setting null values. So there's a few ways that you can set the null values. One, of course, you could use the attribute creator or attribute manager and set it there. If you wanted to get, okay, so here we can see in the attribute manager, for an actual value itself, you can click the drop down and you can set it directly to null. So you can take existing attributes and null them out. Now, you'd usually actually want to set something to null in response to an actual value. Here you can see an example with the conditional statements. Remember, with various attributes, let's see, did we use conditionals in the Form Basic training course? I can't remember if conditionals are in Form Basic or we're going to be seeing them later this week. When you have an attribute, you can set a conditional value. Basically, it's like having a tester followed by an attribute setter. So do a test, and this can be a fairly involved test using and or statements, and then assign it a value. So if it's something like, if it, in this case, if dog park begins with Y, change that to a value of yes. If it begins with no or N, set it to no. If it's anything else, set it to null. But I could also have this where if it begins with N, set that to null, or anything else. So you can set them conditionally this way in response to the value of that particular attribute. If we're looking to change more attributes at the same time, then the null attribute mapper may be a better transformer to use here. Here we could map either selected attributes or select all attributes, which means that I can apply this rule to multiple attributes. In the attribute manager, if I set up that rule, it's just set to that attribute. I could copy paste that to other ones, but it means that if I need to update that rule, I'll have to make sure that I update it for each and every attribute which I'm applying that rule to. With the null attribute mapper, I can set up this rule and then simply select the attributes that this rule will be applied to. So here we have the mapping rule. If the attribute value is missing, empty, null, etc., I can now map this to missing, null, empty, or any other specific value that I want. And in the exercise here, we'll see mapping this to a specific value for a specific purpose. With these drop downs here, so if attribute value is in the drop down, we also have that conditional option as well. So if it's this, or, and then we can give it a more complex conditional test. So those are two of the ways that we can set null or set attributes to null. So there's a question here. Is there a way to keep null values when writing to a shapefile? You wrote to a shapefile in FME and it changed your null values all to 0 since it was a numeric field. If we're writing out, if it's set, if you inspect the data before it goes to the writer and it shows that it is null and it's the FME null, it's actually set to null in those two pointy brackets and not just a text value of that. It is actually null. If you inspect the data, it's actually slightly grayed out, I believe. Let's see if I can quickly pull up, even if I view this, the missing, notice that the missing is actually gray. So you'd be wanting to check that it's null and it's a lighter shade there as well to indicate this is truly null and not a character field pretending to be null. If it's truly null and it's being written out to the shapefile writer and it shows up as something other than null when you examine the data, that's either indicating to me that there's a bug in FME or the shapefile doesn't actually support null. That would be an issue with the DBF database. And Gregory just posted that there may be an option that field is not nullable. So then you'd want to check either your feature type parameters to see if that's an option there, or your writer parameters to see if that is set in the writer or feature type parameters. Okay, so please review setting null values, and we'll continue at 12:35. Okay, good luck, everybody.